Transition! Hello random person, Sab Nino here. Welcome back to Sponge Takes. For a while we were doing Pat Takes, but we're now going back to Sponge Takes because that's what Nickelodeon's airing right now. That Splat logo, am I right?
Oh yeah, they brought back the Splat. It's really back, guys.
The episode we are talking about today is Season 13, Episode 283A, Mom Pa's Big Hurrah. When SpongeBob's parents come to visit, their thirst for thrills comes as a big surprise.
So, SpongeBob's parents' house rots, right? So they have to stay with SpongeBob, and then SpongeBob tries to act mature for them, but that just makes them crave excitement. So then they go out thrill-seeking and drag SpongeBob into them, and it eventually leads to a wrestling match. And once they're back home, SpongeBob goes crazy and destroys his house, and then they take him home so he can rebuild his house. It's great to see SpongeBob's parents in the biggest role they've ever had. I really like how they did their characters here. It totally fits and matches with SpongeBob's personality, kind of shows where he got it from, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I also like how it focuses on SpongeBob acting adult. It reminds me of the themes of the first movie, and I just really like it when they point out that part of his character. And in general, I really liked how the story played out, and how the thrills naturally escalate.
Honestly, I really love the idea of giving SpongeBob's parents a more prominent role, because we had episodes relating to SpongeBob's parents where they're in it, but not as the main focus. We've never seen them as pretty much a starring role. It's really cool, especially since as of late, we haven't been seeing any of SpongeBob's parents. The last time they've ever appeared was Walhalla, and that was just a cameo. Not gonna lie, when I read the synopsis of SpongeBob's parents being thrill seekers, I was honestly a little scared of them butchering their characters, because there was another episode, Biddy Sitting, where they took Lazy Mary's mother, I think her name's Senior Prunes now, and they basically made her a thrill seeker. And when I was thinking of that and thinking of SpongeBob's parents, I was like, wait, that doesn't fit.
Right, but they managed to pull it off though.
Yeah, I think they're crazy enough to the point where it doesn't completely damage their character. But then again though, this isn't really a problem with the episode, but more of just a problem with these characters as a whole. They're not really well established. They don't have that strong of a character other than SpongeBob's parents. Like, there's minor archetypes, like SpongeBob's mother being a nice lady and SpongeBob's dad being more nerdy, which makes a lot of sense, because SpongeBob has both of those traits. But we don't really know much about them as characters, so I was a little disappointed how that didn't really change with this episode. They've definitely tried to flesh them out a little more.
Yeah, they were lightly expanded upon, but I understand why they'd want to be safe and didn't want to try changing their character too much.
It was still interesting to see them again, and they still got a lot of funny jokes.
I really love their voice acting and their expressions. It's just great to see them in this modern style.
This episode reminds me of that whole old family member is too old, but they want to do a lot of hip young stuff, but the younger sibling keeps going, no, don't do this, you're gonna hurt your back, you're gonna injure yourself, I don't want to lose you. But instead of worrying about their well-being, mostly, there were actually a few times where SpongeBob was genuinely worried about their well-being. It's mainly just SpongeBob trying to put on a facade of being a mature adult, even though they don't give a shit.
I really like how once they got to the wrestling match, it got SpongeBob to a breaking point where he didn't care about acting mature anymore. He just went full immature, calling him mommy and daddy. And
here's the thing, we were watching this episode with Tracy. Fun fact, she actually enjoyed the episode. But there was actually one scene where SpongeBob was trying to save his parents, but then he ends up in the wrestling ring. Apparently Margaret and Harold just set him up, and SpongeBob would just, no mess, no mess! And he felt really bad for SpongeBob.
Kind of a bad parenting moment right there.
Yeah, they were honestly pretty awful parents for doing that. It's a funny gag, but by God. SpongeBob's parents, at least in this episode, are definitely not Chili and Bandit from Bluey. We've been watching Bluey lately, so that's fresh in my mind.
SpongeBob going crazy at the end was fitting, but I feel like it could have been more exciting, more of a big deal.
I think they could have cut a few more scenes. Maybe the beginning segment where the three of them are at SpongeBob's place could have been shortened. And maybe if they did that, they could make that scene a lot more exuberant.
I do like that at least the soda bottle jetpack thing was referenced earlier in the episode. The episode ends with them taking him home in his arms. It's really sweet because SpongeBob's mom says, I wonder when he'll really grow up and be mature. And it just kind of shows like what she really thinks of him. It's a wholesome moment and it just feels real.
They appreciate him for who he is, not just because he's their son, but because they also like the excitement. Okay, animation and comedy.
I really like the pacing in this episode, as well as the balance of on-model and wacky expressions. It seemed a little bit closer to the classic episodes in that way.
There has been a lot of episodes as of late that feel super on-model, but I'm not saying that as a bad thing. One thing I really want to bring up is how SpongeBob's parents, Margaret and Harold, are animated in this. They haven't had that big of a prominent role since season 8. In the episode A SquarePants Family Vacation, they show up quite a bit, but they're super on model and stiff and almost lifeless, so seeing that compared to what we have now, it's night and day, and I honestly prefer it quite a bit.
It's a big difference. There's a lot more life put into them. Their expressions, their poses are all really great. It's the most expressive we've ever seen them.
It fits the current iteration, but it doesn't feel too wacky to the point where they feel like completely different characters. I will admit though, there are some parts of the animation that felt a little less, I guess. When he was calling his parents on the phone, there was like a brief moment where SpongeBob said, oh no. I could tell they were just looping a few frames. That kind of just stuck out to me because the rest of the lip sync looked pretty fluid. Also in the roller derby, the establishing shot was just a still image, which was odd to me because there were background fish there, but they weren't moving whatsoever. I keep forgetting to bring this up, but lately in the newer SpongeBob episodes, I've noticed how the animation has been taking what I like to call Mighty B shortcuts. Because in the Mighty B, there are a lot of instances where the characters just jump from one frame to the next, or there's looping animation. And if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the crew behind the Mighty B works on SpongeBob now, so that does make a lot of sense why we'd have these techniques. So every now and then, if there's like a shot that looks a little more off than usual, it's most likely the Mighty B shortcut.
While talking about animation being a little bit off, I feel like there could have been a bit more exaggeration, and I think used the word weight to him using the soda jetpack at the end. They're really wearing their Ren and Stimpy inspiration on their sleeve, with SpongeBob doing the happy happy joy joy dance, and then his helmet even kind of looks like the happy helmet.
I love how we both reference Mighty B and Ren and Stimpy, because a lot of the crew behind SpongeBob have worked on both of those shows.
And I really love the joke about mature SpongeBob wanting to talk about taxes, politics, and how things aren't as good as they used to be. I wonder if that was a reference to people saying that older SpongeBob is better. If so, it's fitting to make a joke like that in an episode that's really good. It's kind of like they're flexing.
Honestly, that is pretty funny. Even if you don't understand the current situation of the SpongeBob fan base, it's still a really funny joke because I know a lot of people are like, oh, the 90s are better, the 70s are better, the generation I grew up with is better. That's basically the long and short of it. But if you do understand the culture surrounding SpongeBob, it works as a fun meta joke, especially since this isn't the first time we've had this, because in the Patrick Star Show's mid-season finale, there was a gag where Grandma Tentacles went, man, this show really gone downhill since the first 3 episodes. In the wrestling scene, I like Patrick being a luchador.
Yeah, his costume's cool.
He wanted a rematch with SpongeBob to get more peanuts.
That was a cute ending.
Scuff and I were joking about this. It almost sounded like he was saying penis. I love penis! I love penis!
Also, SpongeBob yelling at Squidward and Squidward calling SpongeBob Sir was a good gag, as well as when they TP'd his house.
I love how it's almost a role reversal. And he even has a moment where he's just like, wait, what just happened?
one more nice animation bit is I do like the shot of them going above the surface and the Glove World roller coaster.
Bikini Atoll looked a little darker than usual, but I do like how they improved upon the night setting of the CG island because they tried it in Big Birthday Blowout and it just looked like a filter. Tangent of the week. Scuff hasn't seen every episode.
While we were watching this, Sab mentioned something about seeing every episode, and it reminded me that I still hadn't seen every episode actually, even though I'm like a super fan. I did kind of fall off from watching new episodes from like season 6 to 9, so I'm gonna comb through and find the ones I missed, because I feel like as a SpongeBob super fan, I need to do that.
We're gonna watch some post-movie after this.
Originally, SpongeBob's parents lived in a normal house that kind of looked like a cake, but now they live in an avocado in the Avocondos, which is an interesting change. It's creative though, so I don't really mind it.
What's weird about this change is that in their last appearance, Wahala, they were showing a frame of the original SpongeBob parent house. So it's weird how they retcon that shortly after they bring it back.
While the house was withering away, Hawaiian Farewell plays in Home Sweet Pineapple when the nematodes soak up SpongeBob's house.
SpongeBob's abrasive side shows up, which is interesting because that happened 2 episodes ago.
I had a feeling they were going to reference it again after they mentioned it in Salty Sponge.
Elements of SpongeBob they bring back almost feels like a gamble. Sometimes they're recurring like spot, or sometimes it's just something they randomly bring up for that one episode. And the final bit of trivia, this episode of SpongeBob was not postponed by Monster High, which I find to be very interesting because in literally all 4 episodes of Pat Takes, Monster High postponed literally all of those episodes.
Is it time for the secret bonus review?
Monster Takes!
Where we do a deep, in-depth review of Monster High.
It was alright.
Yeah, it was okay.
The designs were cute, but it was okay. So yeah, that was our not first impressions, actually second impression of Mom Pa's Big Hurrah.
Yeah, we watched it twice.
Overall, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, one of my favorites of season 13.
What do you guys think of Mom Pa's Big Hurrah? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Are you mixed on it? Should I get this Draculaura doll? Comment below. And join us next week where we talk about the episode Yellow Pavement. And with all of that said, it's all Sab from here.
Yay!